What would you say you do here? Well, I'll tell you what we do here. It's Orange and Blue today, 3:30 p.m. Mountain Time. Cecil, Lammey. Hope to be joined by Andrew Mason. He's at something called the Super Bowl. So he is down there in Arizona getting his thing done. But I start out with the two Bobs today because I wonder if this is Broncos HR or Broncos teammates or whatever, looking at Draymond Jones saying, like, what are you doing, man? Like, what are you doing, Hans? What are you doing, Draymond? Welcome in. It's kind of the Sean Payton hangover here on Orange and Blue today, kind of leftover feelings of yesterday and what we didn't get to talk about. You have the Draymond Jones faux controversy about him liking tweets. Listen, I don't think Draymond Jones wants to be here. Maybe money can change his mind because money has a funny way of doing that. Maybe a franchise tag will make him mad and give you till mid-July to get a long-term deal done with him. Maybe there's a tag and trade as you try to assemble more draft picks for a team that is in need of talent. But when you have a talented player like Draymond Jones, you just don't let him go for nothing. You try to make it happen with him. And yeah, he may be unhappy, but who the hell would be happy with the losing ways that the Broncos have had over the last 6 seasons? Like, I'm glad that Draymond Jones is not happy, or at least appears not to be happy, or whatever the case may be. Listen, I've constantly said on this program and others, like, Twitter doesn't matter. Social networking's awful. It can reveal a lot of the bad things about society. I don't really care if he's liking something that says from Derek Wolfe, like, let's ride was never cool and never will be, because that's just the truth. It's no shot at Russ. And if Russ can't take it, well, then, he shouldn't be in the NFL, because NFL players, ultimate dudes, like to give each other grief. And you think Russell Wilson is immune to that? You think there's no way people are going to give him? No, of course, his teammates. And the more that he is corny, the more that they will give him grief, trying to snap out of it, right? If you're Russell Wilson, be relatable. Don't be this guy that's not relatable. This whole let's ride thing. You're winning. Sure, you can pull it off. You're not winning. It's just sad. And the trademark about team 3 and not team we, like all these sorts of things. So Draymond Jones is unhappy because he's liking tweets about Russ being corny. Like, yeah, Russell Wilson's corny. What's new? Next. I feel like that's such a boring and old conversation, because it's like, yes, hey, everybody, Russell Wilson's corny. Shocker. So Draymond Jones liking tweets about questioning the bold move for Sean Payton. Listen, Sean Payton should get you excited. And if you are one of those players who maybe were pissed off about the way things have gone in recent years, Draymond Jones could be one of those players. To that, I say good, because you want to win, especially when you come from a program like Ohio State. Like, look at Jerry Jeudy from Alabama. He never lost. And then he gets to the NFL. He's losing all the time. Like, these guys are sick of losing. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with players who are upset because they're done with losing. They're done with the losing ways. And I think the losing ways are coming to a close with Sean Payton here leading the way for the Denver Broncos. So I have a lot to say today, as I often do. I have to shout down some people without yelling at you. I don't want to yell. But there are people that were talking, not necessarily subtweeting at me, because one, I don't care about Twitter. I don't care if I'll get text messages from friends being like, did you see what such and such did? And they that's about you. They're subtweeting about you. I'm like, I don't care. I have no care in the world. Like, I got to watch football. I got to talk about football. I got to write about football. If it's not about one of those things, or comic books, or my family, obviously first, like, yeah, I don't care what some other media member is saying about me, but not actually mentioning me because they're cowards. So I don't care about subtweeting, but I do want to comment on what some have subtweeted about there being a lot of Kool-Aid. And I've seen that across the ranks in the fan base. I know, and I'll name names. Like, I know even our Jake Shapiro, who's a dear friend, was saying, like, sure, there's a lot of Kool-Aid on my timeline. and I don't think Jake was subtweeting at me. One, he would be, personable enough to put my name on it if it was about me. And again, not everything's about me, but when I'm going on about how I love Sean Payton and, uh, I'm sitting here like, yeah, and people are like, look at you got there's the Kool-Aid on your timeline because you said you love Sean Payton. I am not going to BS you at all. And God bless America. I wish I could cuss. I wish I could, because I get pretty fired up about this kind of stuff because I take my role seriously. I'm not here to spread lies or misinformation. The lies and misinformation. I'm not here to do that, as others are. You can tell who talks to agents, okay? And I'm also not here to blow bubbles at you. First off, for the people that do that, shame on you. This fan base is way too smart for you to blow bubbles at everybody. But I remember when I was the only one saying Montreal Washington can't play, and there were others saying like, no, this is quite possible. Like, no, it's not any sort of Kool-Aid. It's how I think and feel about this team from an analyst point of view, not from a fan's point of view. And I know some people get upset when I say this, but I'm not a Broncos fan. I am someone who's going to tell you I'm excited about Sean Payton. That's not Kool-Aid. That isn't any sort of, I'm being friendly to the team. Like, no, it's how I feel about this team because things are exciting now with Sean Payton. Things are exciting now with Andrew Mason joining us live from the Super Bowl and getting things done down there in Arizona for denversports.com. Mace, welcome into the program. How's the Super Bowl treating you, buddy?
Oh, it's all right as I try to get this angle right here. There we go. I could be anywhere, right? Look at this background. I could be in any blank office in America. I am actually, like, if you look out here, there's downtown Phoenix. So
okay,
maybe I should turn it the other way. But this is the area right outside the media room, because if I did this this is why I'm a little late. If I did this in my desk in the media room, then I think everyone who's trying to write would be really angry at me right now. So
plus, you might not have the best audio because things get a little busy in there at the Super Bowl. But it's whirlwind activities for you this week. Mm-hmm. Of course, checking in with people. Some of the main reasons you're down there, Mace, is to just see what people think about the Sean Payton move. What are the early reactions from the Super Bowl?
Well, it's interesting because where I just came from, before I was in the media room, I was at the Fox Sports event. And so you're talking about Sean Payton's coworkers, right? And one of the things that I kind of explored when I asked them questions was the attention to detail aspect of it. And all of them, they talked about how, he did more than he had to do. Like they said, there are some people that they come in from coaching or playing or whatever, and they do their job and they go and they go home. Sean Payton's a kind of a junkie for it. Like the stories is like about how he was staying extra, how he was picking the brains of everyone around him. I think Kurt Menefee mentioned that he'd go to Howie Long, he'd go to Jimmy Johnson, he'd go to Terry Bradshaw, he'd go to Michael Strahan and just pick their brains for ideas. And one thing that I think is going to be interesting and worth watching is he basically got an education in the rest of the league this year because he viewed it from a league-wide level. He analyzed from a league-wide level. So sometimes when you're running one team, you kind of get that tunnel vision on your own team, maybe even like your own division. He got a chance to kind of observe and analyze everybody in the league. And as a result, I'm fascinated to see kind of what he comes up with, because he was basically studying and analyzing and breaking down as though he was coaching, even though he was only doing television. And yet he was doing it on a league-wide scale. So I'm actually I came away from some of the conversations. First of all, it's everyone to a man is like, this is it's going to be different. He's going to change the culture. And if he could make an impression like that just as being a rookie in broadcasting, imagine what impression he's going to make when he goes back to his natural habitat of coaching.
Yes, and we've heard about the coaches doing the sabbatical or doing they're wandering. What is it? Their Europe trip, like before they go to college, right? They
The
have
gap year.
wanderlust. Yeah,
The
it's the
gap
gap
year.
year. And correct me if I'm wrong, because
Mhm.
my memory's hazy. But didn't Mike Shanahan do that, where he kind of floated around? He obviously wasn't on TV, but he kind of went here and before he got the Washington job. Am I misremembering that,
I'll tell
or
you a
is that
story
right?
about no. I'll tell you a story about that, Cecil. He actually had an office set up because some of his coaches didn't hook on with other teams, although they eventually followed him to Washington in 2010. And so he had an office set up for him and those coaches where they were just breaking down film and studying the league.
They were the 33rd
Seriously,
team. I
they
remember
were.
that. They
They
were
were
the
the
33rd
33rd
team.
team
Yeah.
in 2009, and then he got the Washington job, and those coaches, and even at least one off the Denver staff that stayed on the Broncos staff, Keith Burns, followed Mike to Washington to go work with the team out there. So it's interesting how you can kind of get a little bit of a different perspective. Now, it didn't work out on the field for Washington, but there are reasons why. Certainly, the quality of the coaching staff and the quality of the coaching was not a reason why they fell short in Washington. Because as we know now, more than ever, they had an exceptional staff.
And they had the Legion of Boom on the ropes in the playoffs until
Mhm.
Robert Griffin III hurt his knee. Like they had that defense on the ropes in the playoffs. So
Mhm.
kudos to Mike Shanahan. But kudos to Sean Payton, Mace, because it is about being multiple in this league.
Right.
People say versatile. I think we should change the vernacular. It's about being multiple. And when you're going around learning tidbits from people, you're learning
Yeah.
how to be multiple because you know your system works, you love your system, but you're also able to mentally adapt your system and keep up with the league trends. We know that, now the league is trended towards cover two. Everybody's running Vic Fangio's defense. We know that West Coast concepts that's the trend in the league. So like you're keeping current while also knowing that you have your beliefs and what you've built.
Exactly. And I think it's funny. Another thing to kind of talk about trends and what Sean Payton is going to do, something else that was mentioned, especially by the ex players and coaches on the Fox staff, is this team's going to run the ball. And hearing that over and over again, they're going to run the ball. That's because obviously the focus is on what he can do for Russell Wilson, and I think it's justifiably so because of his work with quarterbacks. But there's kind of there's that Bill Parcells in it, right? And ultimately, even though you can win multiple ways with in terms of coming out of the Parcells school, running is a foundational aspect of it, and so it was fascinating to kind of to hear that as well, that he'll evolve, but there's a core thing that's going to remain the same.
Yeah.
In what Sean Payton does.
And it's going to be running the ball. Obviously, they're going to still play great defense. Does that defense include Draymond Jones? I began the show talking about faux controversies, like he's liking tweets that says Russ is cheesy or whatever. Like, let's write it's not cool. It will never be cool. Derek Wolf tweeted that Draymond Jones liked it. He liked something about a bold move, trading for your coach.
He liked the Panthers. He also retweeted the Panthers tweet about
Panthers
hiring
Evero. Yeah. So, he loves Evero. Guys loved Evero. Yeah, he probably doesn't want to be here. Hell, he told you that like in November, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it was very much about the moment. And the one thing about Draymond is he doesn't, that dude doesn't know how to lie. I mean, he may not say very much, but he's always going to shoot you straight. It's one of the things I really respect about him. And I think I think one of the things that'll be interesting is to learn as we're in the coming weeks. We'll probably learn how much Sean Payton is reaching out to his players, because we know he's trying to put together a staff right now. The interesting thing is that Sean Payton, he had the press conference in Denver yesterday. He flew down here. He was actually on set in Phoenix last night. He's finished. Basically, he's finishing out his obligation, right? And
yes.
And that was another thing that I heard today. Respect for Sean Payton finishing the job. He signed on for Fox Sports to do the full season, not to bail out for the Super Bowl. So he's kind of running two races right now. Like he's working on the Broncos, but he's also finishing out his commitment to Fox. And I think that's something that is worthy of everyone's respect. And it's also something that as one of the Fox Sports people said, look, that's the kind of thing that it it plays well with players. Like in terms of him setting an example, here he is once again saying, "I'm doing this to the finish, even though even though I've got something else big, I'm going to finish this job and I'm going to finish it out strong." Um, but at the same time, he's going to do that, and yet he's still going to spend. He's going to spend spare time instead of doing, socializing and all that. He's going to be doing a lot of coaching interviews, like the one that was scheduled for today with Sean Desai at Seattle.
Yeah, so the Broncos still looking, adding people to their staff, and then of course Sean Payton will get to work in crafting this team in his image. One thing that I addressed before you jumped on, Mace, is the nonsense of people saying the Kool-Aid, and I heard this from multiple fans, like, "Oh, it's the Kool-Aid. Oh, you guys said this last year." Because I'm going on and on Twitter, the most important thing ever, about how I love this hire. I love Sean Payton. What a different energy in the building, like. You've been around that team long enough. You know the ins and outs of that building. It just feels different. It feels different with Sean Payton. It sounds different. And yeah, I'm going to be positive about it. But damn it, Mace, one thing you and I have established on this show is it's never going to be Kool-Aid. We're not going to just blow bubbles at the team. We're going to tell you what's up with this team. And I think not only us, personally, you and me, but league-wide, people that we respect and we appreciate, they're over the moon with this hire.
Yeah, and I think, look, part of it is I think you should always give a new coach a shot, a fair shot, to put their stamp on things and see where it goes, and evaluate in due time. Ordinarily, I was one who used to say, okay, really, you got to give 2 or 3 years. I think that's been accelerated in this day and age, right? Mm-hmm. I think it's fair to say we knew about Nathaniel Hackett for certain. We knew about halfway through the year. Maybe some people are going to say, "Oh, I knew after the first game." Yeah, you can say that, but I think you should give a little bit of time to kind of see. Okay, do they find, do they adapt? Do they find their sea legs, etc.? That didn't happen with Nathaniel Hackett. But I think part of it right now, and the coverage is always infused by, let's give it a shot. Let's see, let's see if it works. Look, last year, Nathaniel Hackett was actually a coveted candidate by a lot of teams. It's not like the Broncos hired somebody that wasn't on anybody's radar. Although I don't think you should be concerned by who's on whose radar. You should be focused on what coach fits you the best, right?
Right.
So, but that's going to kind of infuse what we're doing. I mean, we're realistic about it, but I think it's also fair to say, let's give the coach a shot and see what the coach has. Now with Sean Payton, it's different because there's a body of work. It was different when Gary Kubiak walked in. It was different when John Fox walked in.
Right.
As Foxy would say, they had skins on the wall. You had stuff that you could go by. You could lean on and say, okay, why is the coach doing this? Well, X, Y, and Z from previous stop reveals that. And we're going to have that with Sean Payton as well. So there's not that same burden of proof because there's a track record that didn't exist for Vance Joseph, Vic Fangio, Nathaniel Hackett.
Now, there's one question that nobody asked at the press conference, but fans still want to know. Jeremy or Jerome, did I get it right? Just tell me in the chat room. He's like, what about leaving the Saints before his contract was up? There's several ways to answer that, in my opinion, Mace, but I see it as knowing when the time is right. Yeah. Knowing when it's run out of juice, and trying the Taysom Hill, the Jameis Winston thing, whatever, but just knowing if your heart's not in it. And I would rather have someone be able to know that and walk away, even though there's years remaining on their deal, than the coach that sticks it out until he gets fired and then hurts his reputation and also is unhappy with the process. If Sean Payton wasn't happy with the Saints, he should leave.
And there's a big difference between leaving after a season and then leaving during a season, right? After a season, that is the natural end point where, okay, sometimes you move on. How many coaches coach to the end of their contract anyway, right? I can think of very few. Marvin Lewis in Cincinnati, John Fox in Carolina in 2010, but there were ownership issues where those owners didn't really want to pay a coach not to work, so they didn't want to do a preemptive firing. And the coach is like, well, I'm going to, John Fox in Carolina with Jerry Richardson. It was basically two kids staring at each other down in the playground, right? Neither one was going to blink.
Yep.
Richardson wanted Fox to resign. Fox is like, I'm not walking away from $7 million. So, look, so that's why it's a different thing when you're talking about contracts and seeing out the contract, because usually a coach is not coaching in a contract year, college or pro. You hardly ever see that anymore. So it's a bit different. The point is that Payton saw it out this year, and it's not like he bailed on the Saints at midseason. He saw it out through the end of that season. Basically, it was like, okay, I'm going to give this 1 year. Let's see how it is post Drew Brees, and then he moved on. And look, if you're not all in, you should move on, right? He did. And it turns out he's going to make a lot of money with the Broncos, but he did walk away from money with the Saints. He was doing very well, and he walked away from that, and then he was able to obviously get it back with Fox and now with the Broncos. But it's not like he quit and they were still paying him. I mean, he quit. That was it. And actually, it put himself in an awkward situation because the Saints still had his rights.
Right.
And if the Saints had insisted on too much, if the Saints had insisted on 2 first-round picks, Cecil, I am convinced Sean Payton would not be a Denver Broncos head coach today.
Right, because he's trading for himself. He said as much at the press conference. And the thing is like it's you get to an end of something and you just kind of know. And that seems to be about 15 years for a lot of coaches. So 15, 16, Sean Payton's there. And he walked away from comfort. You mentioned the money. He loves New Orleans. He's comfortable, but he didn't want to be comfortable. He wanted to learn, to grow, to kind of reset, recharge. And he said something yesterday that I think really stuck with me. Nothing replaces the feeling of winning. So he would watch all these guys at Fox, watch all the TVs when he's, doing his job on Sundays, and he would be jealous because he knows what that feeling's like. And you cannot replicate that in a TV booth or in a radio show, whatever.
You can have a great life doing those things, but you can't replicate the juice that you get from winning. There's no substitute for that at all. And because of that, it's why I can't blame him for looking at the situation and saying, yeah, I got to get back in. But that being said, it had to be a good situation for him. And that was another thing. I think it was Jake Glazer who was talking about the sorts of things that Sean Payton wants, because, the stereo system when they're on the road, it's, sparing no expense. And that's why he talked about ownership. The reason why ownership was important to Sean Payton was because he doesn't want to have to go to the mat fighting for that extra resource, right? He just wants to be able to go in to Greg Penner and say, hey, Greg, we need to convert part of the building into a bunch of VR bays or whatever it is, right? And it's going to cost X amount of dollars. There are some organizations in this league where you have to fight for that. And even the Broncos, with as good an owner as Pat Bowlen was, I can tell you, Mike Shanahan did not get everything he wanted when he was coaching the team. I mean, I'll tell you a bonkers story. He once wanted to convert Mile High, what is now known as Empower Field at Mile High, to artificial turf because he thought it would give an advantage. They had Quentin Griffin, who was a sharp cut running back and thought that turf would really enhance it. So he had the idea, let's go to turf at Mile High and it'll help us. And Pat Bowlen said, no, we're not doing that.
No, but didn't Q have like a 200-yard game against the Colts on turf, right?
That was part of what inspired it.
One game, yeah.
It was the Week 16 game in Indianapolis that allowed the Broncos to clinch a wild card spot. Clinton Portis was hurt, and Quentin Griffin came in and absolutely tore up the Colts. And then, of course, they trade Portis the offseason for Champ Bailey, and you're starting to look at a team that's got some speed. It's got Champ Bailey has speed at corner, and Quentin Griffin's got speed, and Ashton Lee's got some outside speed because Ed McCaffrey retired. He was ascending into a bigger role. It was a team that looked like on paper was going to be very fast, and so turf might have enhanced that, but thankfully Pat Bowlen said no. And you know what? To me, I don't ever want to see the Broncos play home games on turf.
Right.
Grass field team. And yes, happy Taco Tuesday to you too, Brad. Maybe I'll have if I can get out to the media party tonight. We'll see. It's kind of touch and go because I got a lot to do. And by the way, I got to get over to the Chiefs media availability tomorrow to catch up with a couple more guys.
Okay.
And I got to get up at 5 a.m. for that to make the media shuttle on time.
Woo.
So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how long I'm going to last tonight, but it's all right.
Get the tacos ordered to you.
I've got a lot to do down here, but it's a good thing. I'm going to have plenty of stories coming up. I've kind of teased it a little bit from the conversations I had with some of Sean Payton's coworkers, but we'll have more tomorrow. I'm going to hopefully catch up with Jason Kelsey here later this week. I caught up with Travis Kelsey today. You're going to hear some of that on the drive in the 5 o'clock hour as well. We got a particularly bonkers story from Travis Kelsey about Derek Wolfe.
Okay, I'm sure that he has a few of those bonkers stories.
Being listening at about 5:10 on 104.3 The Fan if you're in the Denver area, or listen to the radio station on our app and all that. And there's something from the past that I want to get to the bottom of that I learned from Travis Kelsey today, and I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, very good. And he's on the case. Kyle doesn't like our hats. He commented twice on our hats. Like, thank God you guys didn't have hats on today. I'm like,
well, I think I look at Kyle. Okay,
I got my hat right here.
Okay, good deal, Kyle. I mean, I salute your choice and I respect your choice to go hatless with the Chrome Dome. You know what? I fully respect that. I have to admit, I am a hat person. I've been a hat person since I was like 12. Okay, like back in. You remember the Clark Griswold hats?
Of course, the Scotch hat. They're Scotch hats with the little button, and then they got the ear muff things, like you pull them over.
No. I'm not. I'm talking about the caps, the Clark that he wore in Christmas Vacation, the Chicago Bears cap.
Oh, okay? Yeah.
That's when you say that's the Griswold, that's what we're talking about. It's that 80s where the team nickname, like with an NFL team, the nickname is in script, and then you have the city name in little letters. It's like Denver and then Broncos in script. It was reversed for CU. It was Colorado in script, and then Buffalo's below. And yeah, I had like 2 or 3 of those hats for the teams that I liked back in the day. And and then I had like remember the college style hats that had like UNC and then like University of North Carolina right below, and then 2 lines across. If you're of our age, you remember these types of hats in the late 80s, early 90s. That's when I became a hat person.
You remember those hats, and you love those hats, right?
Yeah, I still have some deep down. Although I'm kind of on a kick of kind of just the plain hat with the logo now. The part of it is those plain hats. They call the dad hats. You can throw them in a bag. They can get wrinkled, and then you can pull them out, and they still look good when you put them on. So they're easy to travel with. They're not kind of form fitting, but
that's why I wear beanies all the time. Is because I'm like, if I don't have any gel in my hair, like I can just throw on a beanie, and then that's kind of my look. So DMAC calls me a beanie baby, which I'm fine with.
Oh my gosh!
But you'll respect this. One of my first ball caps that I remember as a kid, and my Aunt Gloria got it for me. Shout out Aunt Gloria.
Hey,
she got me a Milwaukee Brewers hat.
I can't remember why.
Logo. Yeah, which is a classic logo. I love. It's
an amazing logo. That's like That's a top 4 sports logo.
And I don't know if it's because I had some Milwaukee Brewers baseball cards or whatever as a kid, but I wore the hell out of that hat. I wore it into where it like falling apart when I was finally done with it. But yeah, the problem is if I got a Milwaukee Brewers hat today, people ask me about the team. I'd be like, I have no idea. no clue. None.
Exactly.
I just like the logo.
If you get outside of the U.S., though, and you see the hats like that, you get a lot of people that are like, I don't know, I just like the look. I mean, that's the thing. A lot of these, a good logo and a good hat becomes popular globally. That's what I mean. That's why you see people that like the Broncos logos. I mean, you're going to see the D with the horse on hats in Sri Lanka, right? I mean,
okay.
You see these things all over the world. So
nice.
That's the power of a good logo.
Yes, that's the power of our hat game, which will return at some point. But Mace, you're down to the Super Bowl. Be good. Be careful out there. Oh, whoa, look out down there, Swanee. Anyway.
I shouldn't. I don't know if they
Yeah,
like.
they
you
don't.
putting
They don't
your-
like when you show your credential.
Yeah.
But
Oops.
you
Sorry.
are there. You are there to report for denversports.com and have fun. I think James is there and Rachel is going to be there today. So we'll have
I
a
didn't know
little bit of a
Rachel
crew
was
down
coming.
there.
I didn't know Rachel was coming. I know James is. I think James is across town at the golf tournament.
Okay.
And so yeah, I didn't know Rachel was coming down. That'll be cool. Well,
Yeah, I think she gets there tonight. So yeah.
Okay.
Tacos, but not too late because you got a 5 a.m. start, buddy.
Oh gosh, I know. But tomorrow's the long day. In fact, tomorrow it may well be the day that I am over at the Eagles press availability doing this show right before their guys come available, because I got to catch up with Jason Kelsey. I also got to catch up with a story that I want to do this week is on Brett Kern. The original sin of the Broncos' perpetual punter problems is cutting Brett Kern. Josh McDaniels did that 6 games into the 2009 season. And they've been looking, and they've been shuffling through punters ever since. They had a few good years with Britton Colquitt, but I think like in those 6 years that Colquitt punted, Brett Kern had better net averages 4 years out of the 6, and he didn't have the advantage of punting at elevation. So anyway, yeah, you know me and punters, but yeah, Brett Kern would have made my job easier, but Josh McDaniels decided to let him go. Idiot.
Yeah. Well, that's Josh McDaniels for you.
Exactly.
He's Andrew Mason. Follow him on Twitter at Mace Denver. I am at Cecil Lammey. Until next time, be safe, be kind, know that you are appreciated. Stay tuned. And as always, please stay frosty.